Hello and welcome to the show. This is Everything Under the Sun. My name is Ty. I hope all of you are doing the best you can to take care of yourselves today. I was looking at the news the other day and I realized it was the 1 year anniversary of the death of Kobe Bryant. And I'm not really sure if you actually call it an anniversary. I'm not sure the term for that, but you get what I mean. And and as I think about that, I also realized that it was the 1 year anniversary of this podcast because my very first episode was covering that incident, which had just happened, like a few days before. So, just thinking about like everything that's happened that year, I think it's just kind of wild because even that first episode, I didn't cover coronavirus or COVID because it wasn't a thing. Like that wasn't even around. I don't think it was in the United States or even a world issue at all, or even on the radar as a world issue at that point. So, it's just kind of crazy, just everything that's happened within that year, all the change that's happened within that year. And as I think about that change that's happened within that year, although it hasn't been the best change, the change that we maybe wanted to see, I think it's an amazing example of just the propensity for change. Because a lot of times we feel as though things are always going to stay the same, yet we had this year with just a radical change that shifted all of our lives, shifted the way that the world works. And although, again, it's not the change that we wanted to see, I think it highlights the ability that change is possible on a radical scale. And of course, maybe radical things have to happen. And I'm not saying like, people start doing radical things, but I'm just saying like we can make the change that we want to see. And I think that just this last year and all the structures and all the foundations that have changed because of the coronavirus, I think that we can also shift that and just realize that that change can happen, but in different ways, by different means. We can do things in our lives and produce the change that we want to see and change the world, and I don't know, I think that just everything that happened this last year, I think that really highlights that the world can really change based on the things that we bring forth. And again, although like this pandemic has brought like so much negative change, I think it also highlighted the fact that we need each other, that we value that connection with one another. And there have been so many avenues that have opened up, so many people opening up about mental health, opening up about just things that they're feeling not okay. And I think that in itself is a radical change for the better for all of us, to feel more open to speak about the things that we want to speak about, to speak about the things that are real to us, because we are real people. And although there are so many ways and so many masks that we have to put on in the world, I think it's nice when we can start taking some of those off. So I think that's really amazing. This past year has just been crazy. I can't believe it's been a year of this podcast happening. And I just want to thank all of you for listening in. Thank you for joining this community and being part of this. And thank you for being you. I think that's really what it comes down to. So in this new year, we're moving forward, trying to move towards better things, better selves within ourselves, or whatever that may be. I guess you're already the best you, but I think, we all aspire towards different things. So I think that's kind of the outlook for this upcoming year. I started working out again, and I haven't worked out since September, and haven't worked out at all. I've gone on like a few hikes and things, but haven't really like done any structured workout. And yeah, I worked out again. I started working out on Friday. It's terrible. it's really terrible. I can't lie. My muscle memory is like starting to come back because I did today's workout and it wasn't as bad as it was on Friday, but it's still just not, it's not fun. And, I'm lying to myself and telling myself it's going to get better, it's going to get easier. But as it gets easier, you have to challenge yourself more. So it's not actually getting any easier. So it's all a lie that I'm telling myself, but it's still getting me back in motion and doing that, which is something that I feel is good for myself. And I've had back problems recently. I think I've mentioned that at some point, but doing a lot of the core workouts, I think it's actually helped my back. I haven't noticed back pain, but it could just be because I'm in pain everywhere else. So, who knows? But that's neither here nor there. I'm going to get going with this episode because, I feel like there's not going to be too much with this episode. I want to kind of go over this idea of self-care. You see what the topic is. The topic is self-care. And I want to go over the idea of self-care, but there's a special element of self-care that I want to add, and I'm going to speak about that in a minute after I bring the topic out for next week. So if any of you have topics or anything that you'd like to share or send in, you can send those to everything.sunpodcast@gmail.com. Nothing is off limits. Really, you can send any kind of topic in, and it all pertains to us, and there's so many things that many of us don't think about that are, unique to individuals, or even not necessarily unique to individuals. That's something that we can all kind of share in, that, not many of us maybe think about. So there are topics that are so valuable that I would love for you to send in. If you want to send those in, everything.sunpodcast@gmail.com, or at any of the social media pages that I'm going to link at the end of this episode. So here's the box and your topics. Love them all. Thank you so much for sending these in. So the topic for next week is going to be consciousness. And I mean, what an amazing topic. I mean, consciousness is something that it really is just the essence of our lives. I mean, the reasons that we even understand life as we know it. So I'm not really sure where I'm going to go with that, because I mean, consciousness, I mean, fuck, like, I have no idea. I have no idea what to do with that, but it's going to be definitely interesting for sure. So I'm excited about that. Thank you for sending that in. Again, send those topics in if you want to. So today I am going to be speaking about self-care. And, I love this idea of self-care because it's something that it's important just in every aspect of our lives. I don't think we really think about self-care as, something that we actively do, but we do it all the time. I mean, we're actively doing self-care all the time, whether we're calling it self-care or not. And I think that just in that idea of us needing to do self-care and it being so important in our lives, I want to start introducing like just a segment within this podcast specifically for self-care, just because it's something that, again, like it's important for us to maintain our self-care in all aspects of our lives. So I was thinking like a self-care segment, and those segments being strictly for self-care. So whether it's, a guided meditation, or just having different guests on the show speaking about their experiences of self-care, whether it's yoga instructors, whether it's motivational speakers, or just people that are doing different things in different professions in their lives, everyone needs self-care. And no matter what you're doing or where you're at, it's part of us. So hearing those experiences and kind of getting an idea of how different people utilize self-care or take care of themselves, I think that's a great way for us to also start thinking of new ways that we can start incorporating modalities that can fit for us, that help us to be okay in whatever situation we're in. So that self-care segment, they're going to be short segments, kind of like the follow-up segments. And again, there's going to be very diverse, different people coming on. I think it's going to allow for a more diverse group of guests because, again, no matter what walk of life you're in, self-care is something that we have to utilize. So hearing those different experiences, I think that's going to be really amazing. So self-care segment, that's going to be something in the future, and I will kind of give more details as it comes along down the line. But as I said, self-care is something that we do every day. Even if we don't call it self-care, it's something that we just always do because it's the act of taking care of yourself. And unfortunately, we only seem to take care of ourselves in many cases when we're in dire need of it. So, I mean, feeding yourself, socializing, these are all things that are self-care. These are part of taking care of yourself. You need to eat to stay healthy. You need to hydrate, to stay healthy. But a lot of times, there are the other parts of our maintenance of our self-care that we don't actually utilize until it's at that critical moment. When we're super stressed out, when we're super anxious, that's when we're like, okay, I need to talk to somebody, or I need to go for a walk, or I need to, run this out, or something like that. And it's unfortunate that we have to get to that point before we start realizing that we're not okay, because the buildup is happening well before that. There's so many things that we experience day to day, so many people, so many obstacles, so many obligations that are coming outside of us that are pulling us and straining us and draining our energy. And it's impacting every single part of our lives. And it's important for us to recognize which parts of our lives they're impacting so we can actually mediate them. It's kind of like when you're sick. If you know that you're sick, you're going to take medicine, you're going to get some rest, you're going to take care of yourself, make sure you're sleeping, make sure you're hydrating. You're going to do these things because you know what the problem is and you know what to do to fix it. So that's the same attitude that we have to have when we're taking care of ourselves in these different avenues. Because self-care, I mean, like taking care of yourself when you're sick, that is self-care. But there are other parts of our self-care that we neglect so often, and they impact our livelihood so much. So like I said, self-care is something that we all do. And it's something that looks different for everyone because everyone has different needs. There are some people that can handle high anxiety situations very well. And they don't need to kind of draw back and reflect on how they're feeling or how they're dealing with their anxiety, while others may need more attentiveness in that way. That's understanding your own unique way of taking care of yourself. So although there are different routes and avenues that people can take to take care of themselves, there's not going to be one structured regime where it's like, I can't tell you, okay, wake up 6 o'clock in the morning, start running, do some meditation, drink some orange juice or whatever whatever. It's not going to be something that, you can stick to a schedule and say like, this is going to work for everyone. Everyone is going to be very unique. So find the things that work for you and utilize them when you need to utilize them. The entire idea of self-care is just, again, to take care of ourselves, but you can't take care of yourself if you don't notice where you're being depleted. How can you give your full self to anyone, to any situation, to your kids, to your friends, to your boss, to your coworkers? How can you give your attention to anyone if you're not able to give attention to yourself? I know from personal experience, I've been in situations where I've been just so stressed out about so many things that I don't even know what I'm thinking. And even in my present environment, like in people around me, I have no idea what's going on because I can't focus on that. And I haven't given that time to myself to actually process what's going on in my own mind. So I'm just like kind of stuck in those weird days. And then I just kind of have to keep moving. And I know there are so many other individuals who have felt the same way, where it's like just things keep happening or things happen. And you're kind of just caught in this daze of not really knowing what to do, not knowing if you're okay or not okay. It's just this weird kind of gray area. And that's because we're not identifying the places that we're depleted. And at that point, you are depleted. You are overstressed, overworked, over anxious, and you're needing to take care of yourself, attend to yourself in some way. So now the biggest question is, when and where in our lives are we needing to attend to ourselves? It's really identifying those areas that we really need to focus on to get ourselves back to being okay. In many cases, like I said before, we get to a point where we're already depleted before we're even doing anything to take care of ourselves or implementing these self-care routines. And that's because we haven't been able to identify where we're being depleted. So now more effort has to go into getting us back to baseline rather than implementing self-care in our day-to-day routine to make sure that we don't get to that point of being fully exhausted. As I said before, our lives are so dynamic. I mean, we as humans are incredibly dynamic. So it's kind of difficult to pinpoint those areas in our lives that those things are starting to deplete in. So something that I do and something that I think is an amazing tool to use is something called a wellness check. And this is something I was on a hike the other day with a friend of mine, and we were just walking through the woods, and I was very happy that she had brought this up to me because she was like, yeah, there was something I was looking at, and it was kind of speaking about these different areas of your life and rating them on a scale of 1 to 5. And this is something that I, learned in my program and something that I used in counseling as well. So it's something that I think is really amazing to use, and it's something that we can use just even having conversations with friends. So this is something called a wellness check. And essentially this is highlighting different domains within our lives that we can kind of just think about and see how well we're doing in there. Are we doing okay in these different areas? And once we identify how well we're doing in this area, we can identify what we can do to help us to kind of improve in that area. So these different kind of domains, and I mean, like, you can look this up online, and I will post this on the social media pages, but there are different domains in which these areas of wellness are divided into. So the first one is emotional wellness. How are you doing emotionally? Are you taking care of yourself internally? There are things that are happening every day. We're interacting with people, we're getting certain vibes, we're getting certain feelings, we're thinking about certain things, and that's all impacting our emotions. So are you checking in with yourself? How are you feeling in terms of comfort with thinking about those things or feeling those things? Do you feel like you're able to attend to your emotional needs? The other category is intellectual wellness. And this is just kind of, how do you feel you're engaging yourself intellectually? Do you feel like you're setting aside that time for reading books or kind of creative hobbies that you have, or just engaging your mind in different ways? I mean, there's so many different ways in which our mind can be engaged, and it allows us to just stay kind of sharp. It allows us to stay attentive and kind of engaged within our environment. It keeps the mind going. You use it or you lose it, as they say. So it's kind of like something where it's like, as we start to lose motivation to engage our mind, we start to lose motivation in our lives in general. So how do you feel about your intellectual engagement or your intellectual wellness? The third category in this wellness check is your personal wellness. So how do you feel about your personal wellness? How do you feel about who you are as a person? Do you feel like you understand yourself, or do you feel like you have the time to get to know yourself? Like I speak so much of this metaphor of just the puzzle pieces that is us. And how often are you giving yourself time at that table to find those pieces, to look at what they mean and who that is, because that is you. So your personal wellness, do you feel like you're connected to yourself in that way and you're able to really be with yourself enough to try to find out who you are really? The fourth category is physical wellness. I spoke about some of this in the episode on exercise. And of course, physical exercise is something that's so much part of obviously physical wellness, but also how much sleep are you getting? How much are you hydrating yourself? Are you feeling as though your body has different aches and pains that I didn't have before? How attuned are you with your physical wellness, and do you feel like that is where you want it to be? The fifth category is the social wellness. So, how do you feel as far as just socializing with people in your relationships, whether it's personal relationships or just friendships and things like that? I know that just like right now during COVID and just social isolation, that's very difficult, but I think we're also at an advantage where it's like we have things like Skype and FaceTime and just these ways in which we can connect with one another even without being with one another, which of course is not the same, but that is something that's available for us. And a lot of times, especially now in times of, being isolated, sometimes people feel isolated and don't really know if they can reach out, or even if reaching out is something that is causing them to feel that disruption. So doing this wellness check again, it can highlight some areas of your life where it's like, holy shit, I didn't even realize that I felt so depleted in this area of my life. Let me try to, do something to engage that, or let me just notice that. I think that's something so big, just to notice that, wow, I'm highlighting this part of my life. Like, I'm doing this. Like, I'm not doing it. I'm just telling you what these categories of this wellness check are. But as you fill it out, you're identifying the number from 1 to 5 that you're feeling within each of these categories. And that's all So, anyway, the sixth category is environmental wellness. So how do you feel about your environment, whether it's, your engagement in the environment, like around you in your community, or in your actual environment? I know with me personally, when my place is cluttered, like I feel like I can't really get work done. Like I feel like it's something that bothers me a lot. Like just a mess or clutter or anything like that. And I'm not like someone that, is super clean. Now I keep things very clean. Like anyone that knows me knows that I like to keep things clean. But there are times when like things get messy, and like when things get messy and I don't clean it up, it's like I know that it's there and it's bothering me. It just bothers me the entire time it's there, but I still don't do anything to clean it up, which is kind of just weird. But eventually I do clean it up, and when I do, I feel like this weight is kind of lifted. It's like the space is clear, like my energy feels clear or something. Like I don't really know what it is, but just when my environment is it's clean and clear, and I can feel like I can think and move around, then I think that that's something that is something so big, and I think that it moves itself so much further than that. So if you are, fine in your environment, like your household environment and everything's like clean, then what about your community environment? Do you feel like you're engaged within your community? Do you feel like you're part of your community? I think that's something so big with this environmental piece. Like how connected are we towards the things that are around us? So the other category is financial wellness. So how are we doing financially? Not only just monetarily, but, as far as the things that you're planning for yourself financially, do you feel like you're on the right track for the things that you want to have for yourself? So many people have things that they want to achieve that revolve around financial aspects, and highlighting this area of your wellness can let you really see, okay, maybe I'm lacking in this area, and I want to have a better structure for moving forward. And that can bring you more ease in this moment, knowing that that was the piece that was causing you uneasiness. The other category is your professional wellness. This kind of goes along with financial wellness in some ways, where it's like, how do you feel professionally? Do you feel like you're moving in the right direction? Do you feel like you're maybe in the right place right now? Or maybe, even if it's not the right place, like the right job right now, do you feel like you're on the right track, even if you're not, in the right position? This is something that can help you just realize, like, what do I want for myself in my life? And why isn't this at a 5? If you highlight like this is at a 3 or something, then you're telling yourself that something isn't right. Identify that for yourself. The last category is your spiritual wellness. How do you feel about the things that you believe? Like this is something that's so big, like I think that as religion becomes something that, well, I mean, it's been something that's been part of all of our lives in some kind of way, so many different things telling us what's wrong, what's right, what's, truth, what's not. I think that there's so much that can cause disruption within ourselves and the things that we believe and ultimately the way that we move in our lives. And I think that as we identify the things that we truly value, the things that we believe within our morals, within, like our mentality, all these things, I think that can give us so much more ease in understanding ourselves and how we want to move in the world. So again, all these different categories, they're dynamic. Some have only 6, some have 8 in these wellness checks, but whatever they are, you can list these down, maybe on a piece of paper. You can do it with friends, you can do it with your kids. You can just write each of these categories down and ask them, or ask yourself, on a scale of 1 to 5, how do I rate myself in this category? How do I feel I am in this category? And it's not something to bring judgment upon yourself. It's just something to highlight, this is how I'm feeling, and be truthful with yourself. Because the more truthful with yourself, the more you can identify areas in which you want to improve. And with each of those categories, as you identify the number, ask yourself, okay, what can I do to bring this 1 point up? How can I bring this from a 3 to a 4? And these are actions that we, within our minds, within ourselves, we know the answers that we want for ourselves. We know the truth that we want for ourselves. So when you identify this category as being a 3, you know what you want to do in order to make it a 4. So think about it within yourself, be with yourself, and those answers will come to you. But it's not until we start identifying it and kind of separating these things and really diving into each of these categories that we can realize the different parts of our lives that we really need to take care of ourselves and really need to attend to. So kind of wrapping up this idea of self-care, I think it's something that it's incredibly important that we kind of identify these different parts of our lives and realize where we need to take care of ourselves, because the better we take care of ourselves, the better we can move through our lives, the happier we can move through our lives. And I think that's really all that matters in so many ways. So anyway, that's really all I have with this episode. I did want to share, I guess, something that I do for self-care. And I mean, although I post a lot of social media about, hikes and going to the ocean, of course, those are things that I love to do to kind of ease my mind, to kind of de-stress and just kind of be. There are also so many times that I like to do self-reflection. Like at the end of the day, kind of just reflect on my day, the experiences that I've had, the things that I've come across. I mean, some things may be just hilarious. Some things may be ridiculous. Like some things may be just like conceptual ideas that I thought about, or things that I've, felt throughout the day through different experiences or whatever that may be. But I just like to reflect on that day and kind of see how it made me feel. How am I taking this day, and how am I going to move into the next day with everything that's happened today? And of course, every day is not like full of excitement or life-changing events, but every day does impact us because, we're moving through life and everything is impacting us. So how did this day impact me? And how do I move forward tomorrow with everything that I've gained from today? So yeah, that's just something that I do. I mean, it's not necessarily something that I just started doing out of nowhere. It's something that I had to kind of like start incorporating in my day because, it's just, again, life gets to us so many times. And when I started realizing that each of my days were impacting me, I think that reflection is something that helped me personally to just notice more of myself. And it's not noticing myself with any kind of judgment or critical eye. It's just noticing those things that come up and those things that impact us in different ways and how they're impacting us. So yeah, that's something I do. It's not something that I'm saying that you have to do, but I just wanted to share that idea. Again, these self-care segments are going to be something that I think will add a lot of just value to just, I don't know, I feel like it add a lot of value to me. Just hearing the different ways that different people take care of themselves, I think that can just widen the horizon for anyone that's looking for new ways of engaging themselves and understanding themselves more and giving themselves that self-love and that self-care that they need, So anyway, that's all I got. If any of you have any thoughts or ideas or anything that you'd like to add to this idea of self-care, you can send any of that stuff into everything.sunpodcast@gmail.com, or you can join the social media pages, Instagram, everything.sunpodcast, Twitter, @everysunpodcast, and the Facebook page, Everything Under the Sun with Ty. So that's all I got. I love you all, and I will see you next time.